Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. This is Tanner Lisa, your host for all things Giallo here on The King of Giallo, and this is another unscripted talking head movie review. This is for the fourth Giallo film from Sergio Martino. Your vice is a locked room, and only I have the key. So I just finished rewatching this movie. I've maybe seen this like 3 times or so. I haven't seen it too many times over the last several years. I actually only saw it more recently, a few years ago, for the first time. But yeah, let's just get right into it. So, IMDb description of the plot is: a string of murders are committed near the estate of a degenerate author whose abusive relationship with his wife is further complicated by the arrival of his manipulative niece. Yeah. So this is again directed by Sergio Martino, written by Luciano Martino, Sauro Scavolini. They give credit to Edgar Allan Poe, which is fair because this is a very Poe-inspired Giallo. We also have Ernesto Gastaldi, Adriano Bolzoni, and anyways, yeah, so it stars Luigi Pistilli as Oliviero Rouvigny, who is the author. His wife is played by Anita Strindberg. The niece that comes to visit, who comes to stay with them, is played by Edwige Fenech. And then some other credits include Ivan Rassimov, but he doesn't really show up until the final act of the film, which, rewatching it, I forgot about that. I was like, is it, like, at one point they introduce a character, Dario, who's a motorbike racer, and I was like, oh, that's him, right? And then I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. Anyways, so, yeah, okay. Here's the thing. Sergio Martino's first several Giallo films are all great. Like, he never really misses, not until a little later in his career, but to be frank, I actually have not seen any of his bad Giallo films yet. But I know as he gets along further in his career, the movies kind of start to dip in quality. But seriously, the first like 5 or so, I'm trying to think what comes after Torso, but they're all really, really good. And he was just pumping them out too. Like when he started in 1971 with The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, he then went on later that year to make The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. And then in 1972, he began with All the Colors of the Dark. And then he did Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key. And then in 1973, he did Torso. Like I said, I'm kind of foggy right now about what comes after that, but I know he's got a lot. Suspicious Death of a Minor, and God, I don't know why I can't remember right now. It's not important. But yeah, so this movie, there's kind of a combination of a lot of the elements he has in his prior Giallo films, as well as his soon-to-be Giallo film, that all these elements are all evident, or they're all present. One thing that's interesting about this movie is it really takes a back seat with the dreams, the hallucinations, the nightmares, that sort of thing. But it does lean heavier, I would say, into the psychology element. Well, actually, because all of his movies are very psychological, at least those first 4, maybe not Case of the Scorpion's Tail, but maybe it's not more so, but it's at least on even keel with Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward and All the Colors of the Dark, definitely. And another thing this movie has going for it is there's a lot going on, especially when you get to the final act. There's a lot of reveals and a lot of twists and turns. And if you aren't really paying attention the whole way through, you will miss something. You will definitely miss out on something. Like, wait, where did this person come from? Or wait, so what happened there? And also, not to give too much away, I won't spoil the movie, but I guess I can say this because this does happen like halfway through. There is something it does which is similar to the Case of is it the Case of the Scorpion's Tail? I think so. Where you find out there is, okay, so we know there's a killer. All of a sudden the killer is caught or killed. And so you'd think, okay, I guess that's it. But no, that killer was actually not killing everybody. It was more of a coincidence. And I wouldn't really call it a copycat killing. But so, yeah, that goes on. And then you have to figure out then, okay, wait, so did that killer kill everybody or just the person that we saw them? And that's just among many things that you have to pick up, or that you have to then start figuring out. The direction of the movie is really, really good. I really like Sergio Martino. I don't think he gets quite enough credit. He does receive his dues, but in terms of when people talk about the top 3 Giallo filmmakers, usually he's not always mentioned. It would be Argento, Bava, and Fulci. But when you talk about the Mount Rushmore of Giallo filmmakers, which would be 4, he's probably on Mount Rushmore. Some people might switch out him for Lenzi, but I think Martino definitely has earned his place. But yes, especially for an early filmmaker who doesn't have quite the pedigree like Bava had during the 70s. Bava had been making films for decades already. Fulci had been making films for at least the last decade as well. Argento and Martino are really the newbies in the 70s who started so strong, and they just continued for a long time. But yeah, I love Martino. I think his direction is on point. I'll get to the pacing in a hot minute. Let me talk about it. The music is great. Bruno Nicolai. It is it's very good. The one thing I will say though about the music is it gets a little repetitive in terms of how it uses certain themes. And so the movie does have a very strong gothic atmosphere, and there is a track that plays throughout the movie. I'm trying to think the instrument it is. I'm like, is it a harpsichord? Something. I can't think of what the instrument is called right now. But it plays fairly frequently. And then also the track that plays during several of the kills. I love it. What is it called? Bad Chase? Something Chase. I think Martino has the best chase kills in Giallo. Now, that's not to say that, they're the most graphic or they're the most whatever, but the use of music with the kills, I just always really, really like. And especially in Torso. Torso, I would say, is like number one. And I would say this is maybe second, but I like it. That's just my opinion. So what else could I say? The writing, like I said, it's kind of all over the place, not necessarily in a bad way. There just is a lot going on. There is a lot thrown at you. And there is certainly a lot of allusions to Edgar Allan Poe. The first one that jumps out is The Black Cat. And like this really, I think one of the alternative titles is, it includes Black Cat in the name. I forgot what it is. But there are a lot of callbacks to Poe's The Black Cat. And then as it goes on, someone is killed and then immured behind a wall. And so you have a lot of Cask of Amontillado. And then in the final scenes, there is a bit of the Telltale Heart. It's just done differently. It's a little bit more married to the Black Cat, but it's awesome. I really, really enjoy it. I think there should be a little bit more Poe influence in some Giallo films, but that's just me. I'm a huge Poe fan. What else can I say about the writing? Yeah, very, very typical with Gastaldi and Martino's combined efforts when they work on films together is the movie is always just throwing a lot at you, and it's trying to always stay a few steps ahead of the audience. Sometimes this works out very well. Other times it feels like it's just doing that for the sake of always having to surprise the audience, which in Giallo films can get kind of annoying when it feels like there's an abundance of twists and reveals just so they can always be like, haha, you didn't see that coming. And that can be annoying. In this movie, I would say it kind of skirts past that. It gets away with it. And going to the pacing. Now, this is going to sound dumb because I would say the movie goes from being like very well paced, getting really fast, and then it'll slow down a bit at times. And there'll be moments where it really slows and then it picks up again. And I say it's dumb because it's like, yeah, that's kind of what pacing is you need to have peaks and valleys. You can't just be fast paced the whole way through. I mean, even the fastest paced movies have to take moments to take their breath. Action movies have to do it. War movies have to do it. Uncut Gems is a good example of a very, very fast paced movie, but it still has moments where it stops to take its breath. And then there's movies that can be a little too slow. So the movie never really is that slow, but I can see people getting distracted. I can see with this movie some people maybe stopping to look at their phone or something, and that's not necessarily the movie's fault. That's a lot of modern sensibilities with what people have been used to with YouTube and TikTok, that it's harder for younger people, I would say, to really be able to sit down and just give their full attention to a film. And like I said, it's not the movie's fault. The movie is not slow. It doesn't meander. It doesn't waste your time. But I have noticed that, I could see this one being a little bit of a slog for some people. But I would never call it that because it's so well shot. It's well acted. The music is great. And what happens in it is pretty damn original. There's a lot of good use of the Poe tropes in this. And it all works very well to the film's effect. Something I want to point out, I should probably say this, get ahead of it before somebody mentions this in the comments. There is something that happens a couple times in the movie where, because the Oliviero is an alcoholic writer struggling with writer's block, there is something that happens in the movie which seems like it precedes a more famous movie in the 80s, The Shining, where the wife comes upon the author in his studio, him working, and he's written like murder, kill her, like all these different things alluding to murder over and over again, not just like over and over and over and over and over again, but like actually structured like he was writing a novel. And this is a reference to Les Diaboliques, which I've said countless times as well, that there are a lot of there's a lot of Giallo films that have taken directly from Les Diaboliques. In fact, I even call it the Les Diaboliques thing, when a Giallo movie has a character killed off, and then we're seeing moments happen afterward, which is like, wait, is that person really dead? Did they fake their death? Or is this character who is involved with the murder, are they going crazy out of their guilt? Les Diaboliques does it best. They stuck the landing better than any other film, I would say. And so whenever a Giallo film does it, I always feel like, why are you doing this? Like, you're not going to be better than that movie. Why are you even doing it? But a lot of great Giallo films still do it. I would say Perversion Story is one of the better ones. It's more of a 60s thing. It kind of died out in the 70s, but you still see a little bit of it in the early 70s. So there is a bit of that going. But I mentioned this to say that in case we want to speculate, I wonder if Kubrick saw this movie and he took that idea and put it in The Shining. I would safely bet against that. I doubt Kubrick ever saw a Giallo film. I might be wrong about that, but something tells me that Kubrick would probably view the Giallo genre as like trashy European films. Maybe I'm wrong, but something tells me he would not really be a fan of the genre. And so before anybody wants to speculate, and it is fun to speculate this, but I don't think Kubrick saw this movie, but I can guarantee he saw Les Diaboliques. Getting that out of the way. But hey, if anybody has any insight that I don't know about that, please share it, because I would absolutely love to be proven wrong on that. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet that he saw this movie. But anyways, it's still really cool. And there are Giallo films that did things that appeared later in more mainstream American horror movies. The ones that I would point to that I can recall off the top of my head is Hatchet for the Honeymoon. Does a lot of stuff which is absolutely reused in American Psycho. And there was something else that happened in Hatchet for the Honeymoon that is used in is it The Changeling? I think it is. But I don't know if that movie was seen. I think it could just be a coincidence, because that's the thing, is not everything was stolen. Some people just, their minds kind of are on the same page with something, and you can get accused of stealing an idea where you never actually saw that thing ever before, and you never saw anything that was alluding to it or referencing it. It just happens sometimes. But it's fun to speculate. What else can I say about this movie? I do want to keep this one short. I've already been talking for a fair amount of time. It's absolutely worth checking out. I would say it is a quintessential Giallo film, especially because it is Sergio Martino. It has a huge Giallo star-studded cast. It's got crew members that have been used in other Giallo films, so it's one of those movies I would say is quintessential. In terms of this being one of my favorites, not really. I don't have anything against this movie, and there's a lot I do enjoy about it, but it's not quite like, I don't know if I would say this is in my top 50, possibly. And I'm eager to get to my 1972 Giallo recap video and see if I actually put it in my top 10, because 1972 has had so many Giallo films that I've literally spent this entire year covering them. And so it's going to be really, really hard for me to determine which of even the good movies are in my top 10 for this year alone. But yeah, I would say check this movie out, especially if you haven't seen it. It is available in some box sets. Arrow did one that comes with it, and I think it comes with A Case of the Scorpion's Tail, as well as The Suspicious Death of a Minor. Great box set. All of those are really great. And yeah, again, I can't really say anything negative about this movie. The only thing would just be that it may not be my cup of tea on any given day. Like, I've seen this movie, like I said, maybe 3 times, and it's not one that I typically want to revisit. Nothing against the movie at all. It's just, I don't know. But I do really enjoy the kills. Like I said, the first kill where the killer jumps out from the shadows, and the music and the way it like crash zooms on that sickle blade, and then the chase, and then the way how when the killer swings the blade and it makes that sound. I love all that. I love that so much. And I think Martino took that style and just extrapolated on it with Torso, his next Giallo film. And I think Torso took everything that was, well, the more slashery aspects of this film, took it and just wowed us with Torso. But yeah, no, this is a great one. This is great if you are a pan. I was gonna say if you are a pan of Poe. If you are a fan of Poe, this is definitely a great one. This is one you could also watch without going into the Giallo genre. That is something I will say about this movie. And I would say that about a lot of Martino's Giallo films, is that you don't really have to get into the genre to watch any of his early Giallo films, like Strange Vice, Case of the Scorpion's Tail, All the Colors of the Dark, Your Vice, Torso, even the later ones like Suspicious Death of a Minor. I don't think you really need to go deep. You don't have to go down the rabbit hole of Giallo films in order to watch these movies and appreciate them. So that is something really cool that Martino has going for him. I would say other directors do have that as well, but I don't know. Martino he just hits a little differently for me. And then I guess I'll mention this too, even though for most people who've seen these films, they know it, so it's not like I'm really enlightening anyone. But yes, the title is a reference to Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, where Edwige Fenech's character keeps receiving these like strange notes from her former abusive lover, who's played by Ivan Rassimov, who's in this movie as well. One of the things he writes her is, "Your vice is a locked room and only I have the key." And for some reason they thought that would be a great name for a title, and we'll do it for this one. And does the title fit? Kind of. I'll say it doesn't not fit, but I feel like they just really wanted to use that title, which I don't care. I don't have a problem with it. It's so fun. But yeah, other than that, I think that's all I've got to say. Yeah, I'll share more thoughts in the Jolly Tally when I get into the spoilers, but thanks for watching. My prediction for this movie's Jolly Tally score, oh my god, I gotta be honest. I went from thinking I feel like it's going to be in the high 600s to the low 700s, so I was thinking maybe 675 to 725. And then as I was in the last like 20 minutes of the movie, there were so many like staple cliches that were coming out and so many extra point type things that I'm like, this actually might be higher. This actually might be higher than I think. So instead of going high 600s, low 700s, I think I am going to have to say, God, do I want to go high 700s? I'll go 725 to 775. How about that? AZ cliches. Oh God, I don't want to like stop here and actually think about it. So I'll just try and be quick. I'll say 16, 17 out of 26. Yep. That's all I got to say. Let me know what your thoughts are for Your Vice's. Let me know what your thoughts are. What your thoughts are for Your Vice. Holy crap, I cannot talk. But yeah, I'm going to be watching 4 other Giallo films this weekend and trying to knock out some reviews, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I will try to provide this movie for you to watch. Otherwise, it is available, I believe, on Tubi and what's the other one that everybody uses? I mentioned it in the overview video. Forgive me. My mind is all over the place right now. But yeah, thank you for watching this. Leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. I'll get back to you so long as you're not being like rude for no reason. Other than that, thank you for watching again. Thank you to all my patrons. You'll all be watching this first and foremost as early access people. And yeah, sorry, I'm hot in this room right now, under these lights as well. So yeah, this is Tanner Leeser for The King and Giallo, and if nothing else, I'll see you next time. Comment your predictions.
Cosa che ha fatto?
Mi ha toccata! Qui!